everyone. Welcome to the Sports Wave Network and Sports Corner with the Conn Man. I am your host, the Conn Man. With me, I have a very special guest. He goes by the name of the Conn Man. That would be me. You know what? Usually, I have very interesting and exciting guests on my show, but due to some interesting remarks by none other than Mr. LeBron James about how Giannis would score 250 points against the former players. On last week's show, the Courtside View, which you all should tune in, by the way, tonight at 9 o'clock live. We have a great time. I had mentioned he could absolutely score 250 points. And I said to them, my crew, you know why? They're like, why? I said, because they're all dead. And it took a while to sink in. But anyway, what I meant by that was, it's so stupid to make a comparison like that. But I digress. I'll go back into that later on. So what I wanted to do is, when I started this podcast business, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. It was during the pandemic, and I had no clue. I was like, what am I going to do? So what I did was I was scrolling through Facebook, and I went online, and I'm looking. I'm like, hey, I was bored. I wanted to do something. So I said, well, damn, I know what I know. So I promoted myself as this basketball historian. And now at the time, I truly meant it. And I spoke about the time that I played against Dr. J. And I guess that was appealing to a lot of the people that I presented myself to. So I went on a few podcasts. Number one was All Ball Chicago with my man Bobby Reed. I got to give a big shout out to him because he got me. That was my very first podcast. And, a lot of people were intrigued for the fact that I did play against Dr. J. And it got me in the door. And then me claiming that I'm a historian, I guess I had to back it up. But I'm not sure if I really did. I just talk about playing against Dr. J. That doesn't make me a historian. And, reading numbers off a book, off a page, or Google doesn't make you a historian. And I had the privilege, the honor, distinction of having the great Sam Jones of the Boston Celtics on my show. He was a 10-time NBA champion. And to this day, I don't know how it all occurred. I mean, I know how it occurred, but I didn't believe it actually happened. And having the opportunity to speak with him, it was absolutely incredible. And I took that label of being a historian off the books. But what I wanted to do this evening for the hour that I have on this podcast was, I guess I wanted to give the viewers a little bit of idea, because I have 5 decades of knowledge about the NBA. I want to give a brief. I don't want to bore you all with numbers and analytics, because that don't mean nothing. I wanted to give you an idea from my perspective of the players that played in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, and on and on and on. And those of you who are viewing live, if you want, throw me a name, any name in the NBA, from the late 50s, 60s, 70s, and on. Long as they had some type of game. If they play only for a half hour, I may not know who they were. But anybody else, I can almost guarantee you I'll know who they were or are, and I'll tell you about their game, which I'm going to do in a minute. But again, that LeBron statement really set me off. And usually I have outstanding guests. And in the future, I'm going to have some unbelievable guests. I'll let you know about that later on. So when I was growing up, I grew up in an all Portuguese neighborhood. And the big thing then was soccer. And I was the only Cape Verdean, African-American, Black individual. And so the big thing was to go play soccer. And obviously, me being the only African-American, whatever you want to call, I was the only one in the whole damn school. So the big thing was to go play soccer before school started. And of course, I never got picked, which was I never got picked. So then anyway, I have an older brother named Billy Concesio, and there was a park right nearby. It was a place called Ashley Park. And I was watching my brother play, and damn, he was good. And so were the other players that were good. And I kind of watched them. I'm like, damn, they're pretty good. So I went back to my house, and this will tell you a little bit. My father would have, whenever there was a game on, a basketball game, which there were hardly any, or even a baseball. I think it was baseball to be exact. I don't know if y'all remember, shows you how old I am. They used to have pieces of film in different colors, blue, red, green. And me, there weren't color TVs. At least we didn't have color TVs. So I would get that film, tape it to the TV. All young folks might know. And in my mind, that's color TV. But anyway, that's how I got my introduction into baseball and became a Red Sox fan. George Scott was my idol. But then, which was 1967, I showed you how far back I go. So anyway, then, I watched my brother play basketball, and then we moved to the west end of New Bedford. And then I went from one extreme to the other. I went from all Portuguese white neighborhood to the hood with a great crew. We all were like a melting pot. It was a great experience growing up there. All the friends and my brother's crew, my sister's crew, my younger brother's crew. We all gathered at the front porch. We was involved in. Well, I wasn't involved, but I was a witness to the race riots in 1970. I think 70. I might be a little off on that, but I was a part of that. My sister got shot on the porch. I remember all that. And I remember playing my very first game. I got recruited to play, and I must have had the worst game imaginable. I think I cried all the way home. I cried the very next day. And then we had a park around the corner from my house called Salvation Army. And the hill, it was on a hill, and the hill would go down or up, however you were standing. And I practiced for hours and hours at the age of 11. While everybody else was at summer camps and doing that, I said I would never embarrass myself ever like that again. So I busted my ass. I improved my game. But anyway, I'm going to fast forward, so I'm going to bore you with my history because it's not that important. But I got introduced to the NBA not through TV because there wasn't many games on, but I used to read about it. And what captivated my eye way back in the day was the Green Bay Packers. And I'm not talking about football, right? The Green Bay Packers, somehow, what I would focus my eye on was something that was like unusual or strange. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, the Green Bay Packers back in the day, you guys can check out the year. They had a running back by the name of Elijah Pitts. He wore number 22. You can go back in the year and Google it and find out when that was. That was my very first. I'm like, I like him. I don't know why. The number 22 stuck to me. Well, anyway, shortly thereafter, there happened to be a guy that was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, and he was called the world's fastest human. And again, as I told you, something that would have to captivate my interest. The world's fastest. I'm like, who is this? And it happened to be Bob Hayes. So that's my idol now. I followed him until he retired, and then I haven't had an idol in football since, and I haven't had a favorite football team since that time. So anyway, now I gravitated toward basketball. I would read things, and I would read about the Boston Celtics, of course. And I don't want to give you all the details of how the NBA originated because it's boring. We all know 1946. I can break it down for you. I can do all that. But I don't think that's I want you guys to keep watching instead of turning the channel or going to another program. But when it originated, it was before my time, obviously, but it was in 1946. And the NBA was obviously was something kind of new back in the day. I'll try to go as fast as I can. So it was kind of boring. But my initiation into the NBA, again, was this guy named Wilt Chamberlain, and he stood 7'1". Again, as I told you, something had to captivate my mind. 7'1". Who the hell was this guy? So I did a little bit of research, And then, I started, finding out what was going on. And then I knew about the Celtics and, the Warriors, Philadelphia, Chicago, all the teams, Cincinnati, all the teams back in the day. Well, anyway, when I was growing up, the games weren't on TV, and we only had 3 TV stations, and none of them carried the games. But what captivated me, and this is why I think the people today's era didn't get a chance or the opportunity that I had. Whenever the Celtics played I'm from the Boston area, New Bedford, Mass, to be exact. So whenever the Celtics played at home, only at home, from my recollection anyway, the games were filmed and televised on Channel 5, WCVB. That's what it's called now. I'm not sure what it was called back then. So I would stay up at, I would be put to bed, but I would get up and I would go and watch them. The parquet floor, and then the play, and it kind of looked like a cartoon to me because I never got to see that. So I would stay up and watch all the NBA, and then I was like, oh wow! And then I would stop, and again when my parents were sleeping, when I'd get up and I would listen to the games. So again, I couldn't see it, so I had to picture it in my mind. Anyway, so as I was growing up on 317 Pleasant Street, I had a crew, and they were all Celtics fans. And so you already know where this is going. So I would tell them that my favorite player was Wilt Chamberlain. And they were like, no, hell no. Bill Russell was better. I said, no, he wasn't. Anyway, we had a big beef. So I don't know who, what, how, or why, but I ended up going to the New Bedford Public Library. This is crazy. At the age of 12. And I went into the library. Now, this shows you how old I am, God damn it. But anyway, they would have microfilm. So I would go into the library and look up microfilm. Now, this old folks will know what I'm talking about. There was no whatever they got now. There was microfilm, and what you did was you wound it like this. So you can see things. You had to wind it up and wind it back. Of course, I needed help because I didn't know how to spell my name back in the day. But you had to wind it up. You had to keep winding it up. And I looked up, I had my pen, I had my paper, and I wrote down every single game that Wilt Chamberlain played against Bill Russell. I still remember, by the way, vividly. I don't want to go into no analytics and numbers, but I can tell you that I broke it down. And, my argument was that, Wilt was way better player than Russell, but Russell had a better team. He had, matter of fact, I think he ended up having, if I'm correct, 7 Hall of Famers. And Wilt didn't really have that many. Yeah, I think he had about 1 or 2, if I'm correct. Again, I'm not looking, I'm not Googling, I'm not doing none of that stuff. Go on top of my head. I think he had maybe 2 or 3. So Wilt was always the guy who didn't have the surrounding that Bill Russell had. And I tell people now, you put Bill Russell on Wilt's team, you put Wilt with the Celtics, what do you think would have happened then? But anyway, I digress. So anyway, my beef was I was a Wilt Chamberlain fan through thick and thin. And, of course, being in the Boston area, I got heat, but I could back it up because I had my stats. But at the end of the day, we all know Russell won 11. Wilt ended up only winning 2. And Bill was his number 1 nemesis. But it was great comparing them. And what I would do is, again, as I said, I would go Russell against Chamberlain. Chamberlain totally dominated him. But then Russell won. So at the end of the day, the Celtics were the winners. But Chamberlain was, I think anybody who really knows the game knows that Wilt was way better player than Bill Russell. And again, I can attest because I actually saw it. Bill Russell had absolutely non-existent 0.0000 offensive game. He had all Russell did, and you can go look at all his films. He had a left-hand hook, and all he did was offensive rebound and dunk, or get a pass and dunk. Wilt finger roll off the backboard, dunk. Wilt did everything, and you know what makes me laugh now is Even Bill Russell stated that. But, Russell won the rings. Russell got 11. Chamberlain only got 2. And I'm telling you all this because I'm going to bring back that comment that LeBron made. But, so, that was great watching them two go at it. They played like almost 70 times against each other. Think about it, 70 over 70. I don't want to give you all the stats, but all I'll tell you is that Wilt completely dominated him. Wilt had more people. He's not getting enough credit at all, as he should. He was, first of all, he led the league in score. He was the number 1 scorer in NBA history at that time. They have a thing that's out there that's really not true. They said the great Nate Archibald was the only player to lead the league in assists at that time and scoring in the same year. That's not true. Wilt Chamberlain definitely did it, and I had to argue with people. But I was looking at that microfilm, and you guys can go check it out. But anyway, so my introduction to that was there, and the NBA. I got captivated because you could once in a great while. You could only see the highlights, so you really couldn't see the players. They were larger than life, which is non-existent today. Because that's why you see a lot of older people, because that resonated with them when they were growing up, because that's all they saw. The great Babe Ruth. We know he wasn't very athletic, but you look at the old people, they'll tell you he was a whatever, because that's what they grew up with. That's what resonated with them. And when I first saw a glimpse of Wilt and 7'1" and this humongous individual, I was like, wow. So I followed him. I was like, But going a little bit before that, I want to break it back down to when I can recollect. So what I did was I don't know. I just went and I Googled the greatest players in the 60s. Now, I barely looked at it, just to let you all know. I just see a name. That's all I need is a name. And I'll tell you what kind of player he was. And more than likely, I'll tell you where he played NBA and where he went to college. Without looking, I'm not studying. I don't even do that. So this might give you an indication of my historic background or my knowledge. And I still have a case of dementia and dyslexia, so bear with me. But on their list, they got number 10 at Jerry Lucas. As you can see, I don't even have to look at it. Jerry Lucas came out of Ohio State. Jerry Lucas was very legendary because when he came out of college, he had another skill that most people don't know. Jerry Lucas was a magician. People don't know that, but he was. But anyway, when he entered the NBA, he ended up playing for the New York Knicks. And the thing I recollect, without looking at it, what I recollect about Jerry Lucas was he was one of the most intelligent players you will ever come across. And when you talk to him, he didn't sound, not that players sound a certain way, but he sounded like presidential even back then. I'll name another guy, his teammate, were the same way. That's why they were so damn good. But anyway, Jerry Lucas was one of the very first players. He stood 6'9", 6'8", 6'9", somewhere around there. And of course, and I'm going to disagree with what a lot of people say, that Wilt, there was no big man back in the day when he played. That is absolute fallacy, whatever you want to call it. That's bull. But Jerry Lucas, what he would do back then, one of the very original ones, he would go foul line extended and hit that J and try to bring people like Wilt, Walt Bellamy, and those players out. And then that's when they would do their thing. Jerry West was he one of the greatest foul shooters for a big man, and he was one of the greatest scorers, and he could hit that perimeter jump shot back in the day which I'll bring up in a little while. The big man his behind was posted in the low post, back behind the basket, didn't have many moves. That was it. But Jerry West kind of extended it. Jerry Lucas kind of extended that. So anyway, that was what they got number 10. I'm just looking. I'm just scrolling. I don't even know. Okay, got number 9. Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor was one of, if not the very first high leapers. And all the old folks here, they'll tell you if I'm lying. He was one of the greatest leapers back then. I mean, his game was very fluid. If you look, he was an unbelievable scorer. I won't mention his partner until next time, but he was an unbelievable, unstoppable, could do it all, rebounding. He had no weakness, and he was impossible to guard. And the bad thing about him, which was unfortunate, was that the Lakers won the NBA championship. I forgot. I'm going to say in that 70, 71, 72, that era. And anyway, the year before, because Elgin Baylor suffered so many damning injuries, and of course, back then they didn't have all the medical uh, technology that they have now. So he had an injury. Nowadays, that would have been repaired. He probably been back on the court in a couple of months. But he suffered an injury that curtailed his career. But he had a phenomenal career. Came out of the University of Seattle and one of these scorers in the nation there. And then he went and played for the Lakers and had a phenomenal career. Just that it ended the year before he won the NBA championship. And I felt real bad about that because I was a Wilt Chamberlain fanatic. So he didn't get the opportunity to win a championship. But anybody will tell you, there were no high flyers in the NBA back then. None. He brought it to a whole new level about playing above the rim. Back then, there was, of course, you had Chamberlain and Russell Duncan. But as far as a swing man, he's about 6'5", smooth operator. And the way he jumped, his legs would kind of go a little, he didn't jump straight up. He would, his knees would go towards his behind, the way he took his jump shot. And he could jump so high that he can get a shot anytime he wanted. And it was unusual because it was something unique and different, which I'll bring up later on. It was something new and unique. And it's unfortunate that his career ended the way it did. But he will go down as one of the greatest of all time, I'm sure. In the record books will testify that he was definitely one of the greatest of all time. So look, I'm just looking right here. So I'm going by their list. Bob Pettit. Bob Pettit. He was probably one of the great white scorers in the NBA. We got George Mikan. That was before my time. I never got to see George Mikan, so I'm not that old. Bob Pettit, again, back then they had no three-pointer. So you didn't have many people shooting like real far away. A lot of the game back then was baseline to baseline, maybe foul line extended, not too far out. And as I recall, about when he first started playing, do you guys realize there wasn't a jump shot? Do you guys realize that? They would step and jump, but I guess you could say jump, but they would go off their toes. They really didn't jump. Back then. That's how old, man. I guess I'm really old. But that they really didn't jump back then. So, and then to see someone like Elgin Baylor come in, it's like a whole different ballgame. That's a whole different element. But Bob Pettit, oh man, he was renowned as one of the greatest scorers. Tough, hard-nosed, again, very intelligent player, tough. And them guys didn't miss games. There was no game management back then. Yeah, he was a great player, all-star for like 800 years. He was one of the top, at that time, one of the top 15 scorers of all time, if I'm correct. But I remember him. Again, those guys really didn't come on TV that much. So my memories of him are via highlights and a couple of times reading when they played the Celtics. I'd watch the films after 11:25 sports segment of the news. But highly respected, highly renowned, and one of the great players of that time. Let's see who we got here. I don't even. Oh, no. I had mentioned the great Sam Jones. Well, every time I mention his name, I start tearing up because he came on my show and he passed away 3 months after that fact. I was his last interview national interview he ever did. And, he told me so many great stories, and I don't know how I was able to have him on my show. Well, there was a guy by the name of John Ippolito who gave me the opportunity. And it's funny how it happened. Unbelievable. I have a good friend named Chops Turner, who's one of the best singers coming out of this area. He got a new single, by the way. But anyway, I had met John Ippolito, and I talked to him at this place called the Kilburn. And I told him I have my own sports show, da-da-da. He was like, yeah, all right. So anyway, I happened to go there because he has a big showroom, I guess you would call it a showroom, I guess, where people can go for weddings and whatever. So I said, well, I played Chops Turner for him, and he loved Chops Turner, and he wanted to have him come and perform. So anyway, I called Chops. I said, Chops, this is what's going on. Can you come down? We can go meet him, set something up. Let's go do this. So anyway, we're walking in, and there was a big, tall, white guy, 6'6", and he had played for UConn. Now, I don't know, one of my best friends in the world, Dave Lato, was the coach of UConn. So we had a little conversation. But anyway, so Chops is sitting down. I'm sitting down. John Ippolito he starts talking to me about who he knows and all the players he knows. And, I know this one. I got that one. I know that. I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go tell somebody who cares. So he tells me, Mike, did you play ball? I said, I played a little bit. I said, I did the damn thing. He said, you ever heard of, no, matter of fact, he didn't even tell me. He said, no, I got something for you. He gets on his phone and he taps down this number. So I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Who's he calling? Anyway, he gets on the phone and he goes, yo, 24, what's going on, my brother? How you doing? So I'm like, what the hell are you talking? Anyway, he gets on, they start talking, they start, shooting the crap for a little while. And he says, hey, I got someone here who would like to meet you or talk to you. His name is Michael, what's your last name? Michael Consaccio. And he would like to, meet you or talk to you. So he gets, I get on the phone. I know who it is. So come to find, it was Sam Jones. So I introduced myself. He introduced himself. And then, we took back the phone. And then John Ippolito proceeded to show me all the pictures he took with all the great players. Spencer Haywood. This guy's, to this day, he knows everybody. I don't know how. So he said, afterwards, he said, Mike, you want him on your show? I said, what? Mike, do you want him on your show? I think that would be a yes. So anyway, we made some conversations. We talked. And then he gave me a number, and I contacted that number. It wasn't Samuel. I think it was his son who was kind of handling his business situations. And I got in contact with him, and I got his email. No, did I get his? No, it was by phone back then. But before that, I got his phone number. So I was on the air. I had happened to ask one of my good friends, Ed Atlas, who was a historian himself, to come on because I felt that, it would be a great honor for him to talk with Sam Jones as well. But what happened, because I wasn't all there, what happened was once I got the number, I had put the numbers with about 3 or 4 numbers. So at that time, it was a different network. I had given my producer a number. And meanwhile, I had me and Ed on the show. We're kicking it, and we're waiting for Sam to come on. And my producer at that time said, Mike, you gave me the wrong number. Now I'm on the air. I'm like, oh, shoot, what am I going to do? So I had to kick it to my boy Ed. I said, Ed, cover this for me while I go get the right number. So I ended up getting the right number. I hooked up to my my producer at that time. And so me and my boy Ed, we just kicking it. We just talking and we kicking it. And then all of a sudden, Mike, he's here. He's on. I said, who? Sam Jones. I said, what? I was told I could only get maybe about 10, 15 minutes. True story. Ed's right there. He'll tell you if he's on. He'll tell you. I said, you're only going to get about 10. I said, I don't care if I get 10, 15 seconds. Anyway, he came on, and I may be exaggerating a little bit here and there because it was so great to me. But, I was informed that we can only do 10, 15 minutes. My timing might be off, but I felt like we did about an hour and a half. I don't know for sure if it was an hour and a half, but it felt like it. And let me tell you right now, whatever historical component I think I had was thrown out the damn window. He told me me and Ed things that I thought I knew, but I never knew. The problem, but he know something. He wasn't really like complaining per se, but how the Celtics were treated back in the day. So he really didn't talk about it that much, but you could feel it or hear it in his voice what they went through. Being a Black American, black playing for the Celtics in the south of Boston area, and what the players had to go through. The blacks ate in one place, the whites ate in the next place. The blacks weren't allowed in the hotel, and they couldn't go out to dinner together. All the things that they couldn't do, and they could only drink. The blacks drank out of a water bubbler, and the whites drank out of separate. All those things are things that happened, of course, to the great Bill Russell after winning a championship, and then coming home to find his house full of the outside walls full of feces and flags on the front lawn and threats. And so I'm like, you know what, Mike? That history thing, you don't know. I'm seeing history. I'm talking to history. Not no book. Not no what do you call it? Movie, a video, documentary. This is the real deal, Holyfield. And he gave me so much insight. And me, I had to ask him all kind of questions. You know what I mean? I know how I get. But I was asking him a lot of, and so did Ed as well, because we were both intrigued, having the opportunity to talk to someone at that age. And then, you know what? This is what is, before I go about Sam, this is what's great. Like I said, I was supposed to only have 15 minutes. Then we started kicking it. When he found out where I was from, he would ask me questions if I knew so-and-so. I'm like, yeah. Oh, but how did you know? He said, Mike, I used to go by that way a lot. I used to go Massachusetts, down to Cape, the Vineyard. I know. And they mentioned some people, Jeannie Costa, Manny Costa, I'm like, what? Anyway, we developed a bond. And we just kept talking and talking and talking and talking. And I don't know how long it was, but it was phenomenal. It was incredible. And you know what really made it special to me? I'll never forget the date. It was June 10th. I think it was a Friday. June 10th. I forgot how many years ago it was. But anyway, my birthday is June 11th. So I go out Saturday morning, I do my errands, and I come home, the phone rings. And I pick up the phone. I say, hey, hello? He said, hey, Mike, how you doing? I'm like, ooh. Who's this? He says, it's Sam Jones. I want to call and thank you for the interview. It was a great interview. I want to thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm like, you're thanking me? I didn't say that, but I'm like, you're thanking me? And it was phenomenal, man. But I'll tell you one thing. I said, Sam, if you were playing in today's era, how would you do? I'll leave it to your imagination what he said. So, but yeah, it was a great honor to have him on my show. And I had just started out. I wasn't really comfortable. I was still nervous. I was still, shy around in front of the mic. I was cool. My man Ed made it a little bit easier for me to do. I was doing the show, and he covered for me while I had to go look for the number. But it was very, very, made a very great impression on me. And I'm so proud. I'm not a Celtics fan, as everybody knows, but I am proud of the fact that I got to meet this man, and he was so humble, no ego, nothing. And I tried to get him to talk about, he talked a little bit about, of course, Jerry West and Oscar, and he talked about Bill. Of course, he talked about Bill Russell a lot. Oh yeah, but I mean, the man had 10 rings. You don't hear nothing about it. He got 10. They talk about Jordan 6, just Magic 5, Kobe. He had 10. And you don't hear his name. And he wasn't coming off the bench. He wasn't, a role player. He was an integral part of the Boston Celtics. All-Star, I think he was a 3 or 4-time All-Star, All-NBA. I mean, the guy had a great, as you can see, I have no stats. Great credentials, and he was just a phenomenal player. and it was an honor and a pleasure. So, I God bless you, Sam. You made that's probably the most uh, emotional interview I've ever had. So I want to thank Sam for that. Who they got here? Oh, okay. They got Walt Bellamy. Walt Bellamy, about 6'11". Walt Bellamy, again, Wilt was 7'1". Walt Bellamy was 2 inches shorter. Again, they're saying Wilt had all midgets. Again, wrong. Walt Bellamy was an outstanding individual coming out of college. Walt Bellamy played for quite a few teams in the NBA, but was mostly known for the Knicks. And when Will Chamberlain, from my recollection, Chamberlain didn't dominate Walt Bellamy. I mean, he got his 40, 30, whatever it was. But I guarantee you, he didn't shoot a great field goal percentage, because Walt was no joke. Walt, back in them days, there was no, ha, 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 ha. No. If I recall, I don't think they even shook hands. I could be wrong, but again, I don't think they even shook hands. I mean, players back then, before, I don't recall if they did. Again, a lot back then, I didn't see a lot of games on TV, so games weren't televised. So I really don't know. I may be speaking out of but from my memory, I don't think they all shook hands. But Walt Bellamy was great. He was a rim protector, but could score. When he was younger, that's what happens to a lot of players. When you were younger, they had the lift, they could jump, they were quicker, they were faster, they weren't injured as much, injury prone as much. Walt Bellamy always played with a brace on his knee or his wrist or his arm or his hip. But he played through pain, whatever, and there was no days off. He played. He was tough. I remember, Will had a hard time with him because he was athletic. He could jump too. Will had that, the finger roll and dunk, and which I'll talk about a little bit later on. We still got, I only got about 20 minutes. Damn it. It's going by too fast. I'm going to have to go back quick. I'm sorry, people. Okay, we're going to have to go down here. I'll continue this. Billy Howell, I'll be quick. Billy Howell wasn't athletically gifted. He played for the Celtics. He was a good scorer. I mean, and nothing stood out, but he was he just fit the way the Celtics play. He fit their system. He wasn't a big time scorer, but he fit in. I guess he played into the system, but he was effective. And he had a great career. He had a long career, and he was very effective. Talent wise, back then it was, basic fundamentals, but he was a very smart player. I got to be quick because I ain't got too much time. I want to get to where I want to. Oh, and here they got Bill Russell. This would take me about 12 days. I'm not going to go too detailed. Russell was the Russell. I guess the best way to describe him, he was a winner. People don't talk about when he came from the University of San Francisco and played in the backcourt with Casey Jones. They won back-to-back NCAA titles. No one talks about that. So he came from that way. Then he got traded to St. Louis, which people don't know. I don't want to break it down for you, but the way that the Celtics obtained Bill Russell, which people don't know, was through the Ice Capades. You're going to laugh. What the hell? It was through the Ice Capades. I'm telling you, back then, the Garden was filled. The biggest grossing thing were the Ice Capades. And it was St. Louis, or was it St. Louis? Or was it? My memory's going a little bit. But anyway, the owner of the team said, look, I'll give you the rights to Bill Russell, but in turn, I want the Ice Capades. Look it up. And it was done handwritten. That's how Bill Russell was done. He went from, matter of fact, it was Cliff Hagan and Easy Ed Macaulay. Easy Ed Macaulay, it was St. Louis, because Easy Ed Macaulay had an autistic son. He didn't want to play for the Celtics. He wanted to be closer to his son. So it worked out for Easy Ed Macaulay. I don't think Cliff Hagan was too happy, but Cliff Hagan and Easy Ed Macaulay went to St. Louis. Therefore, Bill Russell came to the Celtics. Look it up. I don't have much. I got 20 minutes, so I'm going to try to be quick. So Bill Russell, again, he came from championships. Went to the NBA and went with the Celtics and totally changed the Celtics outlook from the get-go. And then the Celtics, but see, what was cool is somehow, again, you got to give credit to that damn Red Auerbach. They had the opportunity to get Casey Jones. Casey Jones had just played with Russell at the University of San Francisco. They won back-to-back NCAA championships. And all of a sudden, Casey ends up with Bill Russell. Now, check it out. That year that Bill Russell went to the Celtics, that year, would you believe he didn't get Rookie of the Year? Do you believe me? Did not get Rookie of the Year. You can, again, look at everything. Again, I got no Google. I don't have anything. Who won the, guess what? They managed to pull, the owner of the Celtics and Red Auerbach pulled tricks that I don't know how they did it, but they did it. They did all that while still maintaining the 7th pick of that year's draft. And who they chose in that year's draft was a guy by the name of Tommy Heinsohn. Tommy Heinsohn graduated from Holy Cross, where he was one of the top scorers in the nation. The Celtics were able to still keep their 7th pick because the way they finished they only had the 7th pick. That's why Red Auerbach said, I want this guy, Russell. How am I going to get him? So he had to make moves. That guy was incredible. He had to make moves, and he ended up getting, look what he ended up getting, Bill Russell, while still keeping the 7th pick, which happened to be Tommy Heinsohn, who ended up becoming an all-star, 8, 9-time all-star, Hall of Famer, and all that. Still managed to keep the 7th pick. Figure that out. Anyway, Bill Russell won so many damn championships. I don't want to talk about it. I get pissed off because he beat my boy Wilt almost every goddamn time. But anyway, Russell went on to win so many damn championships. Wilt Chamberlain only beat him once when he was with the 76ers, who, by the way, probably had the greatest basketball team of all time. Anybody who knows will tell you. The 1967-68 year, I think it was, they won the championship. Nobody. They had probably one of the best teams. I can name the whole thing if you want, but I don't have. I'm short for time now. But they had one of the best teams of all time. And I got to give a shout out in his. I got to give you a couple because I only got a few minutes, so I got so much to say on my mind. I'm gonna tell you the NBA, the way it originated. More things were done off the court than they were on the court. More things, people like Oscar Robertson, I can't even get to yet, because he might be, who's next? I don't know. Jerry West is next. But people like Oscar Robertson did so many things for today's player. Back in the day, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, they were like slaves. The players were like slaves. There were hardly any trades. You know what I mean? If you didn't like where you were at, you had to stay or go. And the salaries back then were almost non-existent. So you had players who took this. That's why I'm going to go off on LeBron on my show, or on our show tonight. I'm going to go off on that. But do you know that Oscar Robertson, I don't want to go into details because it'll take me too long and I'm going to bore y'all, but he is the one that got the ball rolling. Do you know that the players didn't have no insurance? If they got hurt, they had to pay. I mean, they had very few benefits awarded to them. They had very little pay. And there was an All-Star game, which was held at the Boston Garden. Meanwhile, Oscar Robertson said, hell no, we can't do this. So now this game was going to be televised on national TV. And before I don't know how long before, I don't know exact, but maybe a few hours before, Oscar got together with both teams and said, we got to make a stand. We have to make a stand to get what we actually deserve. And he went, or whoever went, the representative went to the owner and said, we are not playing. This is one of the most important things of the NBA. If y'all listen to anything I say, we're not playing. Now the game's on national TV. The owners, the TV network, the whole thing's at stake. we're not going to. I think there were 4 players, if I recall, that didn't agree, and they were going to play anyway. But I think the rest, the remaining, I think there was 24. I think maybe 4 or 6 didn't agree. But those that did, they stood thick and thin. Guess what? They got their wishes. They played the game. And then they became a thing that you guys got to realize. It was called free agency. Remember that word, free agency. Who developed that? Who came up with the idea? And who got chastised? Who got Oscar Robinson? Him, and I don't know if you ever saw that picture. You got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You got Muhammad Ali. You got Lou Alcindor. You got Jim Brown. You got all them in a circle. That's what that was about. That was Oscar Robinson. And guess what? Ever since he got done playing, my man was blackballed. He did a couple of games on ABC as a commentator, and then he's blackballed. He got blackballed. I'm letting you know, because he took a stand for the players of today. That's why I'm going to go off tonight. For the players of today. So players can go free agency. Believe me, if he didn't do that, who knows when free agency would have came about. That was one of the major steps of the NBA. I know I didn't have to go into detail about the history as I wanted to because time's running short. But anyway, I wanted to give you a brief overlook about I'm going to go a little bit further. You know, the NBA, no games on TV. They were treated like crap. Oscar Robinson made a stand. And believe me, he got death threats. He got the whole, you don't know what these players went through. That's when I hear LeBron, these guys talking, it pisses me off. That's why when I first started, I wanted to, first of all, keep the history of the players going. And I tried, that's why on my show, I try to get guests, old-time guests. Sam Jones, I was fortunate. Kermit Washington, I was fortunate to get. So there's players that I want to keep their memory alive because what they did enabled these players of today to get what they have. Now, of course, they got so much, but they would never have gotten it without the players of the past. And that pisses me off, and I'm going to go off tonight's show. You got to check it out. I know you're going to be probably watching the UConn game in UCLA, but I'll be putting it out there, and I'll be putting it on full blast. But our show is called The Courtside View, where we go over topics of today's NBA game. We got some great topics. We have a great crew. You're going to love it. But, okay, now I got to go back. I got to hurry up. Jerry West, my man. What can you say? He's on the ball. He's on the basket. He's the man. Jerry West, they call him Mr. Clutch. And he sure came out of West Virginia, which is I won't go into the race stuff. But he came out of West Virginia, and he was oh, man. Again, there were no three-point shots, but he would pull up. About 6'4", could go either hand, right or left, pull up anywhere. Pull up, and Mr. Consistent. And he was one of them dudes that really didn't show emotion. Him and the great Walt Frazier were the best players that I've known with no emotion. I wish players today were like that. But anyway, Jerry West, again, he's the senior of the logo. He's the Mr. Logo. He's Mr. Clutch. Great playing career, as well as a great businessman, long-time general man. He's had damn near every position in the NBA for years and years and years. And what a great ambassador to the game of the NBA. Phenomenal player. Me being a Laker fan, Will Chamberlain, you guys probably don't remember the great shot he took coming past half court and hit I think it was from the other foul line, if I'm correct. From the opposite foul line. He stepped, I remember the play, stepped, and the game, ball went in. That's when they started calling him Mr. Clutch. One of the best players of all time. And then they got Oscar Robinson, Mr. Triple Double. Oscar Robinson, wow. There's no comp like today's game that I can compare him to. He was about 6'5", another strong. Again, there was no three-pointer. So Oscar used to just back you into the post. Bang! boom. And he was so strong, and he could rebound because he was size. He's about 6'5". He was thick, strong. Had his shot was kind of funny. I mean, well, what am I to say? He had kind of a funny shot, but could score at will. Absolutely unstoppable. What a phenomenal career. And I think maybe even more of a phenomenal career off the court, again, for what he did for the future generations of players with the free agency. And I keep talking about the things off the court because there was more things done off the court than ever was on the court to give the players the freedom to go into free agency. And then we can go with Spencer Haywood, who left to go to the NBA, and they used it as what they finally call the hardship. I can break that down for you. But those kind of individuals made the game a lot better for the players. And that's why Oscar was, I guess, what's the ostracized? Man, I came up with that. Ostracized for the most of his after playing days. And right now, I think he's only doing maybe Milwaukee games where he played at his last year when they won a championship, or maybe doing college games when he should have been a fixture of the ABA. I mean ABC, excuse me. I got dementia. ABC. A very knowledgeable guy. He's still kicking, still very knowledgeable, and those guys sometimes, when you hear them talk, I think a lot of it has to do with the load management. I think they're very upset. But you got to remember where they came from. They were making, I think at that time, I think the highest salaries was like 100,000, maybe 125,000. So you look at what they did and how they worked, and they played every damn day. And there was not all these crazy Kelly's this, that, this train that they didn't have that. They didn't talk about it. You had to be almost dead to not play. So you didn't hear about, and then they didn't have all the things that they have today, the training, the nutrition, the crazy. Most of the places that work 2 jobs, people don't know about all that, but it's my job or my mission to let people know and not to forget all those people that came before the rich and famous now. You can't forget those, because without them, there would be no NBA the way it is right now. So Oscar Robertson, I think he don't get enough. They talk about what a great player he was, but he did more for the game off the court than he did on. I want people to remember that. As great as he was on the court, what he did was more important than what he did off the court. And then we come down to number 1. You already know, my man, Will Chamberlain. This is not my list, by the way. It's not my list. This is the list. And you know something? We only did the 60s and the 70s. I'm going to have to do part 2 another time. But anyway, how can I describe Will Chamberlain? Phenomenon. Freak. Crazy. Unbelievable. You guys can watch some videos, and they'll tell you. Matter of fact, there's a video. Check this out. There's a video that Arnold Schwarzenegger was talking about. Will came into the gym while they were working out, and he was doing the bench. I don't want to give them, because I don't know exactly what it was. I don't know. But Arnold Schwarzenegger was saying how strong he was and Will was not there lifting weights, weight training. He would just go out there and do it. Facts. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's still alive. He put a video on about how strong Wilt was back in the day. Well, back then, they said he had a 50-inch vertical leap. I don't know if that's factual, but you see some highlights where he's on the top of the square. Wilt Chamberlain played for the Harlem Globetrotters when he first got out of college. He went to the University of Kansas, where he didn't win the championship. That's probably one of the things he probably regrets. See, where you got Russell, who always won, and you got Wilt, who put up the numbers but wasn't a winner. So, I mean, that's kind of compare and contrast that. But as far as Wilt is concerned, freak. Great volleyball player. Could play damn near anything, could do anything. And he was just a freak. He was I don't know, he undescribable. And if you talk to players, they'll tell you he's the strongest player ever. And I'm going to leave. I got about 5 minutes. I'm going to give you my little last part. I wish I could go on. I'm going to do part 2. I'll get to the 70s and the 2000s. But one thing I will say, even though I'll probably bring it up on the show tonight, tune in to the Courtside View, 9 p.m. live on the Sports Wave Network. I'm sure you guys will be watching a great women's game tonight. At that time, UCLA UConn. And but stay tuned for that because we go off. We get it in. But I'm gonna leave you guys. We got about 4 minutes. I'm gonna leave you guys with this. Let me tell you right now, that comment that LeBron made was asinine. Let me tell you, you put players the way they're playing today against what they were playing. That is the most idiotic comparison ever. Put them back in that era, which might be the same way, but we're going to talk about the old school. There. Look all the rule changes that have benefited the players today. There were 8 teams back in the day. And let me tell you something, folks. Giannis wouldn't be doing that stuff half court. The big man was posted in the paint. Jokic wouldn't be doing that stuff. You talk about Shaq being a bully? Let me tell you something right now. I'll name Wes Unseld, Walt Bellamy, Nate Thurman. Let me tell you, they weren't having it. And let me tell you, back then you could hold, you can grab. There's been games where people got punched in the face and stood in the game. So getting back to where now it's really fake follow, all that crap. You know what I mean? I am so pissed about that. And unfortunately, we're going to run out of time. But I wanted to leave you guys with this. With that comment that he made was so idiotic. That's like saying the planes nowadays are better than the planes in 1907. The word is called evolution. The game has evolutionized. The game back then, the biggest thing was Bob Cousy when he did behind the back. There was no Euro step and this and that. There was none of that. Back then, they had basic because it was just the evolution of the game. But you put them guys, they'd be in the paint. They would get beat up in a minute. You ask any old player. Matter of fact, I was watching a piece about my boy Neanderthal. You know, it was war. It was no joke. You went out there, no huggy, kissy. No. They went out there and they busted their behind. That's how they played the game. That's the way the game should be played. There are no rivals like they used to be back in the day. You know how the Celtics and the 76ers and the Warriors and the Knicks I mean, come on, man. That was great basketball because they played every night and they gave it 100%. And you got all this low management. And think about it. These guys are making 40, 50 million dollars a year and they can't play back-to-back game. So don't get me going. You know, unfortunately, I'm out of time. That went so quick. Damn. But anyway, I'm going to do part 2. It won't be anytime like real soon because I got so many great guests coming up. But if you guys can tune in tonight at 9 o'clock while you're watching the UCLA UConn game, we'll be on Courtside View. Myself, my producer, Key Williams, Chris Robinson, my man, Coach Dante, who's off the hook. And, you know, every now and then I'll throw in a couple of rants and raves. And, you know, whoever knows what might come on. Maybe Cool McCann will come on. But it's a very entertaining show. It's all NBA. We've got some great topics to bring out tonight. So please tune in if you can tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Courtside View. Just come on, check it out, see what you got. Again, thank you for tuning in to my show. We'll be back next year with some outstanding guests. And we got some really good guests coming up. So thank you guys for tuning in. Let me do my rant, my little historical background. We're going to go into part 2. And I hope you guys tune in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I have so many damn stories. But unfortunately, we're running out of time. You all take care. Be safe. God bless. Thank you so much.